There are moments in life that arrive quietly, no flashing lights, no staged drama, just an honest slice of reality caught in a single photograph. And for 1,000-pound sisters star Amanda Halterman, that moment came on an ordinary Tuesday morning in Kentucky. The sun was barely warming the front steps of her home when she stepped outside, cradling her newborn grandson in her arms. The world around her was still. Faded blue sky, a sleepy neighborhood, the faint murmur of early autumn wind brushing past. But in her hands, resting peacefully against her chest, was a brand new life, and beside him, a brand new version of Amanda. At 44, Amanda had already weathered storms many people never speak about: family chaos, personal battles, the heavy burden of weight, self-worth, and public scrutiny. But this time, she wasn't posting a moment of frustration or heartbreak. She was sharing something softer, something sacred. "From the moment you were conceived, you were loved," she wrote on Instagram. A quiet caption, just 9 words. But behind them was a woman who had changed, inside and out, in ways that fans immediately saw the moment the photo went live. Standing on that stoop in simple gray-blue sweats and a matching tank, her hair pulled back in a no-nonsense knot, Amanda wasn't trying to pose. She wasn't modeling. She wasn't seeking attention. Yet the transformation was undeniable. She looked lighter, not just physically, but in spirit. Her frame slimmer, her posture stronger, her smile touched with something gentle, something hopeful. And fans noticed instantly. The comment section lit up like wildfire. "Amanda's looking snatched," one wrote, star-eyed emoji and all. "Amanda, you are looking amazing," another added. A third fan summed it up perfectly. "She looks great and healthy. What a beautiful photo." But what people were really reacting to wasn't just weight loss. No, what struck people was peace. Real, earned, overdue peace. Amanda wasn't just holding her grandson. She was holding the proof that she had survived her darkest chapters and was slowly stepping into her brightest ones. And as the camera captured her on that Kentucky porch, with a new life in her arms and a new life inside her, she wasn't trying to impress anyone. She was simply existing, and that was enough to make the world stop and pay attention. For years, viewers had watched Amanda Halterman stand in the shadow of her sister's chaos: Tammy's hospitalizations, Amy's struggles, the family arguments that spilled across living rooms and screens nationwide. But what most people didn't see was the quiet war Amanda fought within herself. Because beneath her tough exterior, the sharp humor, the no-nonsense attitude, the fire she brought whenever Tammy or Amy pushed too far, Amanda carried something heavier than any weight shown on TV: the battle against her own reflection. She spoke of it once, softly, in a rare private moment with her followers. "I know what it's like to struggle with self-confidence," she confessed in a post from March. Then she added something even more vulnerable, something that revealed the heart behind her strength. "Mello reminds me every day of how he sees me through his eyes, and it helps so much." Mello, her son, had unknowingly become a mirror, reflecting back the version of her she often forgot existed. Not the woman who had been judged by numbers on a scale. Not the woman who had been overshadowed by family drama. Not the woman who had learned to defend herself before she ever learned to love herself. But the woman who was worthy. The woman who was strong. The woman who was becoming. And in that same post, she admitted something even harder. "I'm learning to love myself enough to accept both the compliments and the constructive criticism. I can feel myself growing into the person I'm meant to be. I hope you're finding that too." These weren't the words of a reality TV personality chasing attention. They were the words of a woman finally taking her life back, word by word, choice by choice, day by day. So when fans praised her weight loss, when they commented on how snatched she looked, they were responding to more than a changing body. They were witnessing the evolution of Amanda Halterman, the version that had been there all along, buried beneath years of pain and obligation. The transformation was not just physical, it was spiritual. And the photo with her grandson became powerful not because of the scale, but because of the story behind it. A woman reclaiming herself in a world that had often demanded she shrink, not just her body, but her voice, her presence, her truth. But that chapter was ending now. Amanda was no longer shrinking. She was expanding into someone bolder, happier, healthier, and far more grounded than the world had ever seen her before. The afternoon light in Kentucky had a way of softening everything it touched: the cracked sidewalks, the quiet porches, the worn-out wooden steps where families had gathered for generations. And on that particular day, it softened something else too: Amanda Halterman herself. She stood on her front stoop, cradling her newborn grandson in her arms. The baby's tiny breaths puffed against her collarbone, warm and delicate. A reminder of beginnings, of new chapters unfolding even when old ones still weighed heavy. Amanda wasn't dressed for a photo shoot. She wasn't posing. There were no filters, no studio lights, no rehearsed smiles. Just gray-blue sweatpants, a loose tank, her hair tied back in the kind of messy ponytail that only mothers and grandmothers truly understand. The kind that says, "I've been through something, but I'm still here." And in that moment, she didn't look like a reality star. She looked like a woman finally catching her breath after years of holding it in. The camera clicked. One photo. Just one. And somehow, it captured everything. By the time she posted it to Instagram, the world had already begun turning the image into something bigger. Not gossip, not drama, but admiration. Comments flooded in within minutes. "Amanda's looking snatched ice fire. Girl, you look amazing. What a beautiful picture. You look so healthy. You're glowing. Weight loss looks great on you." But it wasn't just the praise. It was the way people seemed to understand the depth behind it. Fans who had watched her for years recognized something more profound than a slimmer figure. They recognized the shift in her posture, the softness in her expression, the way she held that baby with steadiness instead of exhaustion. This wasn't the Amanda who had once buried herself in the background, watching Tammy spiral and Amy struggle. This was a woman stepping forward, not because the cameras demanded it, but because life itself was calling her into a new season. Even the harshest critics, the ones who usually had something to say about every pound gained or lost, fell quiet under the weight of the moment. It was as if the photo spoke louder than they could. It said, "She made it. She pushed through. She didn't quit." And for Amanda, that meant more than the comments, more than the attention, more than the numbers. Because for once, she wasn't being celebrated for her family, she was being celebrated as herself. A woman, a mother, a survivor, a grandmother with a new life placed gently in her arms. And for the first time in a long, long while, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, she deserved every bit of it. The truth about Amanda, the part most fans never fully grasped, was that she had always been the quiet backbone of the Slayton family, the protector, the one who stepped in when things got messy, when emotions ran high, when Tammy's temper exploded or Amy's stress finally cracked through her cheerful exterior. She had always been the one who stood her ground. And that strength, that steady fire, had made her a fan favorite over the past few seasons of 1,000-Pound Sisters. Not because she sought attention, but because she was real, unfiltered, unafraid to call things exactly as they were. But behind closed doors, away from producers and confessionals, Amanda had been fighting a lifelong battle that didn't always make the final cut. Her weight, her health, her sense of worth. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't dramatic. It didn't come with ambulance sirens or emergency weigh-ins. But it was constant, a slow, grinding fight that had followed her from childhood into adulthood. When 1,000-Pound Sisters first introduced her, she was heavier, quieter, more hidden in the edges of the frame. Fans knew Tammy's struggles. They knew Amy's challenges. But Amanda's journey, that was something she protected with both hands. And yet, over time, she began to appear more often. A little slimmer, a little stronger, a little more sure of herself. Viewers noticed. Producers noticed. Her own family noticed. She wasn't just Tammy's sister anymore. She was becoming her own story, one marked not by chaos, but by resilience. The more she showed up on screen, the more people realized how necessary she was. Tammy could be volatile. Amy could be overwhelmed. The rest of the family could be stretched thin.
But Amanda?
She was the anchor. The one who pushed back when Tammy tried to steamroll everyone in her path. The one who held Amy steady through postpartum depression. The one who wasn't afraid to expose the family's flaws, but never in a cruel way. Always in a way that showed she cared enough to tell the truth. And in that honesty, fans found something rare.
They found someone who felt like them.
Someone who wasn't trying to be perfect. Someone who wasn't pretending. Someone who wasn't waiting for fame to fix her. She simply showed up, flaws and all, and somehow that made her shine brighter than the drama ever could. So when her weight loss became noticeable, when the changes in her health reached a point where people couldn't ignore the transformation anymore, fans didn't just applaud her appearance. They applauded the courage behind it. Because if anyone had earned the right to rise, inch by inch, pound by pound, moment by moment, it was Amanda Halterman. And the truth was becoming impossible to deny. She wasn't just a side character in Tammy and Amy's story anymore. She was stepping into her own. By the time the calendar flipped into the new year, something in Amanda had shifted. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but in that slow, steady way that real change usually happens. The kind of change that creeps in at dawn unnoticed at first, until one morning you look in the mirror and realize you've become someone you fought for, someone you prayed for, someone you didn't know you had the strength to become. It was early January when she posted a new set of photos. Nothing fancy, nothing curated. Just Amanda being Amanda. A hoodie, a soft smile, a glow that wasn't from makeup or lighting, but from something deeper. Peace. The caption was simple. The pictures were simple, but the reactions? Explosive. Because fans saw it immediately, before she even said a word. She looked different. Not just lighter. Not just slimmer. Happier. The kind of happy that can't be faked for camera. The kind that comes from weight lifted off your soul, not just your body. She left a lot of weight behind in 2024, one fan wrote. Okay, Amanda. Fire looking good, girl. You are on the right side now. You got too much fire and soul inside you. You look so happy. Can't wait to see more of you this season. And perhaps the most telling comment of all, Amanda needs her own show. Life at Home with Amanda. People weren't just reacting to a thinner waistline. They were responding to the woman beneath it. Because Amanda didn't post before and after photos. She didn't announce pounds lost. She didn't brag, compare, or compete. All she did was show up, quietly, consistently, authentically. And viewers felt that. They felt the maturity, the discipline, the clarity. She wasn't chasing attention. She wasn't chasing fame. She was chasing better, however that looked for her. And the photos made one thing very clear. She was catching it. Her posture had changed. She stood taller, shoulders back, chin lifted not out of arrogance, but out of earned confidence. The kind built through choices no one sees. The early mornings, the healthier meals, the emotional work, the boundaries, the grief, the growth. It was all written there, subtly, in the way she held herself. And the fans? They weren't just celebrating the transformation. They were rooting for her future. Because in a family where chaos often stole the spotlight, where pain overshadowed joy, Amanda had become something rare. The proof that healing was possible. That progress didn't have to be loud. That strength didn't have to be dramatic. It could simply be lived, day after day, until one day you looked in the mirror and saw a new version of yourself staring back. And Amanda, for the first time in a long time, liked the woman she saw. If you looked closely at Amanda's recent pictures, really looked, you could see something quietly powerful happening beneath the surface. It wasn't just the weight loss. It wasn't just the slimmer jawline or the defined shoulders or the way her clothes seemed to hang differently on her frame. It was the energy, the presence. There was a clarity in her eyes now, a sharpness that hadn't always been there during the hardest seasons of her life. The exhaustion that once lived in her expression, the emotional heaviness of holding up her family, of navigating Tammy's volatility, of supporting Amy through pregnancies and heartbreak, had started to lift. And just like the weight on her body, the emotional weight was slowly melting, too. Her followers could sense it. They had watched Amanda fight for years, not publicly, not with dramatic breakdowns or explosive confessionals. but silently. Through emotional maturity. Through boundaries. Through the quiet refusal to give up on herself. Through the unglamorous discipline of choosing differently, even when no one was clapping for her. Now, finally, the world was seeing the results of a battle she fought mostly alone. And her fans responded with a warmth that surprised even her. Because in a time when 1,000-pound Sisters was between seasons, when updates from the cast were scarce and speculation filled the timeline, Amanda's transformation became more than an image. It became a storyline of hope. Happy New Year! You look so happy and radiant. One follower wrote, "You're glowing in 2025. Keep going. You seem so at peace. It looks good on you." And then came the comments that hit deeper. "You inspire me. Seeing your progress gives me hope. I struggle with weight and confidence too. Thank you for being real. I'm starting my journey this year because of you." Amanda read those messages late at night, sitting in her living room after the house had settled into quiet. Messages from strangers who somehow felt like family. Messages from people who saw themselves in her, not in the reality TV chaos, but in the fight behind the scenes. And every time she saw one of those comments, she felt a warmth that wasn't about validation but connection. Because one of the hardest parts of weight loss, real weight loss, the kind that requires honesty with yourself, is feeling like you're doing it alone. But Amanda was no longer alone. She wasn't just losing weight. She was gaining community, gaining confidence, gaining peace, gaining control. For the first time in a long while, she wasn't reacting to the turbulence of her family. She wasn't bracing for Tammy's next meltdown or Amy's next crisis. She was choosing her path, her health, her happiness. It showed in her face, in her smile, in the lightness around her, the kind that can't be faked, filtered, or edited. Amanda wasn't just becoming smaller. She was becoming more herself. What made Amanda's transformation so compelling wasn't just how she looked, it was what she had walked through to get there. The Slayton family had never lived an easy life, and the world had watched much of their struggle unfold on camera. But what viewers didn't always see was how much of that weight Amanda carried on her own shoulders. For years, she had been the enforcer. The one who stepped in when Tammy pushed too far, when Amy cracked under pressure, when arguments threatened to split the family apart. She had been the voice of reason, the shield, the fighter. But even the strongest people have a breaking point. Amanda had hers quietly, not in front of cameras, not in dramatic scenes, but in moments alone when she'd stand in her bathroom, stare at her reflection and wonder, when is it my turn to take care of me? When do I stop surviving and start living? Those questions stayed with her, lingering through sleepless nights and long days of filming and raising her own family. They lingered every time she put someone else's needs before her own. And they lingered the first time she began walking more, adjusting her meals, trying to rebuild her life from the inside out. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't instant. It wasn't perfect. But it was real. And when her family's chaos began to settle, when Tammy found love and stability, when Amy focused on her kids, when the constant emergencies finally slowed down, Amanda discovered something she hadn't felt in years. Space. Room to breathe. Room to think. Room to choose herself. That's when the real transformation began. She wasn't trying to prove anything. She wasn't chasing a number. She wasn't preparing for a storyline. She was simply learning how to live without abandoning herself in the process. So when fans saw her new photos at the start of 2025, when they marveled at how happy and healthy she looked, they were responding to that unseen journey, the kind that doesn't get its own episode, the kind that doesn't trend on social media. Because the truth was written all over her face. She was finally free. Free from the weight of old expectations. Free from battles that weren't hers to fight. Free from the guilt of choosing her own well-being. And it showed. In the softness of her smile, in the confidence in her posture, in the lightness that had replaced years of heaviness. Amanda had spent a lifetime holding others together. Now, she was finally learning how to hold herself. As winter settled softly across Kentucky, the Slayton family entered one of those rare stretches of quiet, The kind of pause that felt almost unnatural after years of living inside storms. The holidays had passed, the new year had begun, and for once there were no emergencies, no shouting matches, no unexpected trips to the hospital. Just life. Ordinary. Uncomplicated. Almost peaceful. For Amanda, that quiet felt like oxygen. For the first time in years, she wasn't bracing for Tammy's next emotional explosion or Amy's next crisis. She wasn't stepping in as referee, counselor, or firefighter. She was simply existing, breathing, moving at her own pace instead of the frantic rhythm of everyone else's chaos. And that stillness, that much-needed space, became the foundation of her biggest transformation yet. She used it. She cherished it. She poured herself into it like someone who had been thirsty for far too long. Every walk she took around her neighborhood felt like a reclamation. Every healthier meal she chose was a subtle reminder that she deserved care, too. Every decision that centered her own well-being, even the small ones, added up. She didn't document every step. She didn't announce every goal. She didn't ask for applause. But the work was happening. Not loudly. Not dramatically, but consistently. And that consistency, that grit, began shaping her from the inside out. By the time she welcomed 2025 with those photos, Amanda wasn't just physically changed. She was mentally lighter, emotionally stronger. The kind of strong that doesn't come from fighting others, but from fighting for yourself. And the fans felt it instantly. "You look peaceful," one follower wrote. "You have this glow. Like you're in control of your life now. You inspire me."
Seriously. Peace. Control.
Inspiration. Words she never imagined strangers would use about her. But they were right. Amanda had entered a new chapter. One where she wasn't defined by her sister's struggles or the show's drama. One where she finally had the space to heal, grow, and become the version of herself she had always hoped was possible. And as she held her grandson in that now-viral photo, her arms steady, her expression soft, her posture strong, something deeper shined through. Not just weight lost, but weight lifted. It wasn't just a picture of a grandmother holding a newborn. It was a portrait of a woman who had survived years of chaos, fought through her own battles, carried her family more times than they probably knew, and still managed to rise. It was the quiet, undeniable proof that she had stepped into a new era of her life. And this time, she wasn't stepping in as someone's sister, someone's support system, someone's backup. She was stepping in as Amanda. Fully, powerfully, unapologetically. The new year brought more than cold mornings and quiet streets for Amanda Halterman. It brought reflection, a time to look back at the roads she had traveled and recognize how far she had come. For a woman whose life had long been defined by family drama, reality TV scrutiny, and the constant struggle for self-acceptance, this pause was revolutionary. She spent mornings sipping coffee on the porch, sunlight spilling over the Kentucky horizon, and allowing herself moments of stillness she hadn't permitted in years. There were no cameras, no scripts, no producers hovering with questions. Just Amanda. Just herself. Just the soft rhythm of her own breath and the occasional coo or cry from her grandson. It was in these quiet moments that she fully felt the weight of her journey. Every pound she had lost wasn't just a number. It was years of self-doubt, stress, and emotional baggage she had shed piece by piece. Every healthier choice, every walk, every moment of self-discipline was a testament to her resilience. She had endured scrutiny, confrontation, and the relentless chaos of family dynamics, and still, she had emerged stronger. Fans couldn't help but notice. Social media lit up again when Amanda shared candid snapshots, small smiles, relaxed shoulders, a brightness in her eyes that spoke louder than words. "Happy New Year. You look so happy and radiant." One comment read, "You're glowing in 2025. Keep going." Another added, "You seem so at peace. It looks good on you." Amanda read them quietly, letting the messages wash over her. They were more than praise, they were acknowledgement. Recognition that her struggle, though private, was not invisible. that the years she spent standing strong for others hadn't gone unnoticed. And it wasn't just fans who noticed.
Her family did too.
While others might have expected jealousy, comparison, or criticism, they witnessed a transformation that was undeniable, a change that commanded respect rather than competition. Amanda's confidence radiated in subtle ways. The way she laughed, the way she held her grandson, the way she carried herself through family gatherings with grace and calm authority. This wasn't a fleeting moment of happiness. It was a foundation, a promise to herself that her well-being would no longer be negotiable. She had learned that caring for herself wasn't selfish, it was essential. That she could be strong for others only when she was strong for herself. And in that strength, Amanda discovered something she had long forgotten. Joy. The kind that isn't dependent on drama, approval, or recognition, but comes quietly from knowing that you are finally standing in your own power. For Amanda Halterman, 2025 was not just another year. It was the year she claimed herself, fully, fiercely, and unapologetically. As the weeks of 2025 unfolded, Amanda Halterman's transformation became even more evident. It wasn't just about appearances. It was in the way she moved, the confidence in her gaze, the ease in her interactions with her family. She was no longer the quiet, supportive sister who stepped into the background while Tammy and Amy dominated the screen. She was a presence in her own right, a woman who had carved out her own space in a life that often demanded she shrink to fit. Her social media posts reflected this new phase. Simple photos, ordinary settings, a walk through her neighborhood, a quiet moment with her grandson, a casual coffee on the porch. And yet, each image radiated a strength that fans couldn't help but notice. Comments poured in, praise, admiration, and support from viewers who had followed her journey for years. "You look amazing. Love seeing your happiness," one fan wrote. "Your glow is unmatched. So proud of you." Another added, "I'm inspired by your journey. Thank you for showing us it's possible." But behind the likes and comments, Amanda's real victory was internal. She had spent so long carrying the burdens of family drama, public scrutiny, and her own insecurities that moments like this, calm, self-assured, unguarded, felt revolutionary. She wasn't performing for cameras anymore. She wasn't defined by how the show framed her story. She was simply living her life, quietly, on her own terms. By mid-2025, Amanda Halterman's journey had begun to resonate far beyond the confines of Kentucky or the Slayton family's televised drama. Her story, once intertwined with chaos and comparison, had evolved into something universally compelling, a narrative of resilience, self-love, and transformation. Fans weren't just seeing a slimmer frame in her photos. They were witnessing a woman who had reclaimed her life, brick by brick, choice by choice. Amanda's mornings now carried a rhythm of intention. She rose early, often before the world around her fully stirred, and took quiet walks through the neighborhood, the soft crunch of fallen leaves underfoot a grounding melody. She relished these solitary moments, allowing herself to reflect on the progress she had made, both seen and unseen. Every step she took was a statement, a declaration that she was prioritizing herself in a world that had long demanded otherwise. Social media updates continued to showcase her evolution, though Amanda kept them subtle. No dramatic before and after comparisons, no staged transformations, only honesty, simplicity, and glimpses into her daily life. And the responses were immediate, heartfelt, and overwhelmingly supportive. "You're glowing, Amanda. Your journey is so inspiring," one follower wrote. "Seeing you embrace yourself motivates me to do the same," commented another. "Thank you for being real. It gives hope to all of us struggling with self-confidence." Amanda read these messages late at night, when the house had finally quieted and her grandson slept in his crib nearby. They weren't just words. They were validation of the work she had poured into herself, a reminder that the quiet, consistent effort often overlooked by cameras was just as important as the dramatic moments on TV. Her family noticed the changes too. Interactions with Tammy and Amy, though still lively, were now marked by a subtle respect that had been absent before. Amanda's confidence had become magnetic, a quiet power that influenced the household without confrontation. The weight she had carried, emotionally, mentally, and physically, was lifting, and it reshaped the way she moved through the world. Amanda often reflected on her evolution. She thought about the years spent supporting others, absorbing stress, and neglecting her own needs. She thought about the resilience it took to survive that life, while still believing in herself. And she thought about the joy that came from finally realizing she had the right to prioritize her own health, her own happiness, and her own growth. Every smile she shared, every post she made, every moment she held her grandson was a testament to a woman who had survived the storms, embraced the process, and emerged not just lighter in body, but stronger in spirit. Amanda Halterman was no longer defined by family chaos, reality TV expectations, or past struggles. She was defined by her own courage, her own choices, and her unwavering commitment to becoming the woman she was meant to be. Summer in Kentucky brought long, golden afternoons that stretched lazily across quiet streets and open fields. Amanda Halterman moved through these days with a calm confidence she had rarely known in her life. The camera lenses of 1,000-pound sisters might have captured the drama, the chaos, the family tension, but they could never fully convey the quiet revolution happening within her. She spent her mornings in reflection and her afternoons in small but meaningful routines, walks with her grandson in the stroller, cooking meals that nourished both body and soul, and carving out time for herself in ways that had once seemed impossible. These routines, though ordinary, were transformative. Every decision reinforced a lesson she had learned painfully over the years, that self-respect and self-care were not indulgences, but necessities. Amanda's social media continued to serve as a subtle window into this transformation. Photos posted were unassuming, a smile with her grandson, a sunlit porch moment, a snapshot of a simple family dinner. Yet fans reacted with overwhelming support, connecting with more than just appearances. They connected with the woman she was becoming, resilient, grounded, and unapologetically authentic. "You look so happy, Amanda. Loves seeing your energy," wrote one follower. "Your journey motivates me to take better care of myself." "Thank you," commented another. "You're glowing, and it's not just about the weight, it's your spirit shining through." But the transformation wasn't merely physical or emotional, it was relational. Amanda's interactions with family had shifted. Where once tensions had dominated, now there was mutual respect. Tammy and Amy, with all their strong personalities, were gradually acknowledging the steadfast, grounded presence Amanda brought. The dynamics in the household subtly changed, creating a ripple effect of calm and stability that even the cameras couldn't fully capture. Amanda often reflected on the years she had spent in the shadows of drama, the moments she had been the anchor while others struggled, the nights she had cried quietly, and the endless effort it had taken to maintain both family bonds and her own sense of self. Those experiences had forged her strength, but they had also taught her patience, humility, and the value of quiet perseverance. Now, as she watched her grandson sleep in the soft afternoon light or heard the laughter of her family filling the house, she felt an unfamiliar but welcome sensation: peace. Not the fleeting kind that comes from avoiding conflict, but the steady, enduring kind that comes from knowing you are exactly where you need to be, having done the work to claim your own life, your own happiness, and your own identity. Amanda Halterman had become more than a reality star. She had become a beacon, proof that transformation is not just measured in pounds or appearances, but in courage, self-love, and the quiet power of choosing yourself again and again. By the late summer of 2025, Amanda Halterman's transformation had reached a point that even the most casual observers could not ignore. She moved through her Kentucky neighborhood with a new rhythm, shoulders relaxed, chin lifted, energy calm, yet undeniably magnetic. It was the kind of presence that drew attention without seeking it, the quiet power of someone who had survived storms and emerged intact, wiser and stronger. Her social media updates continued to document this evolution, though subtly. A candid photo of her and her grandson sitting on the porch, laughing in the late afternoon sun. A picture of her preparing a healthy meal in the kitchen, flour dusting her hands, and a satisfied smile on her face. No dramatic captions, no staged poses, just authenticity. Fans noticed immediately. "You look radiant, Amanda. Your happiness is contagious." One wrote. "Seeing you embrace yourself motivates me to do better," commented another. "You've become the person you were always meant to be, inside and out." For Amanda, the praise was secondary. What mattered most was internal, the awareness of her growth, the pride in her choices, and the sense of control she had cultivated over her own life. No longer defined by the chaos of her family or the weight of reality TV expectations, she had stepped fully into herself. Even family interactions had shifted. Where conflict and tension had once marked every household gathering, there was now space for understanding and respect. Tammy and Amy, still strong-willed and fiery, began to recognize Amanda's steadfast presence not as competition but as stability, a calm force grounding the family without ever needing to assert dominance. Amanda often reflected on the journey that had brought her here. Years of struggle, public scrutiny, and personal battles had left scars, but they had also built resilience. Every step of weight loss, every emotional breakthrough, every small victory had contributed to a transformation that went far beyond appearances. She had learned to accept both praise and criticism, to hold herself accountable without harshness, and to celebrate progress without comparison. And perhaps most importantly, she had learned to find joy in the ordinary moments, the laughter of her grandson, the warmth of the sun on her porch, the satisfaction of taking care of herself. These small, intimate victories reminded her daily that she was no longer surviving life. She was living it fully. Amanda Halterman had become more than a cast member on a reality show. She had become a symbol of perseverance, of self-respect, and of quiet triumph. A woman who had endured, transformed, and emerged ready to embrace every aspect of the life she had fought so hard to claim. As the year edged toward autumn, Amanda Halterman's journey reached a milestone that was as much emotional as it was physical. The transformation she had quietly nurtured over months, the walks, the healthier meals, the boundaries set, the inner work done, had fully begun to crystallize into a presence that could not be ignored. She was no longer just a reality star, no longer just Amy and Tammy's sister, no longer just a supporting character in a story that had often overshadowed her. She was Amanda Halterman, in full, radiant command of her life. On her porch one crisp morning, with the early sun spilling across the steps and warming her skin, Amanda held her grandson close. She looked at him and thought of the years she had carried burdens too heavy for her own shoulders, the scrutiny, the family drama, the personal battles, and how each struggle had ultimately brought her here. The baby stirred in her arms, tiny fingers curling around hers, and in that quiet intimacy, Amanda felt a profound sense of accomplishment, not measured in pounds lost, likes gained, or screens watched, but in moments like this, moments of presence, joy, and connection. Her fans continued to respond with awe and encouragement. Comments poured in on her latest posts. "You've truly blossomed, Amanda. So proud of you. Your journey inspires me to take care of myself. The peace and strength you radiate is beautiful.
Keep shining."
But for Amanda, the real victory wasn't in the praise or validation. It was in the small, quiet victories she experienced daily, the calm in her interactions with her family, the ease in her steps, the freedom to choose herself without guilt, the joy of watching her grandson grow, and the knowledge that she had fought for this peace with resilience, patience, and unwavering determination. Through the lens of her journey, a powerful truth emerged. Transformation isn't just about appearances. It isn't just about losing weight, gaining admiration, or reclaiming your image on social media. True transformation is the reclamation of self, the courage to step into your own life fully, to embrace both your imperfections and your strengths, and to carry forward with authenticity, dignity, and joy. Amanda Halterman had not only transformed her body, but she had redefined her story. She had moved from living in the shadows of family chaos and public scrutiny to standing firmly in the light of her own choices. She had learned to prioritize herself, to nurture her spirit, to celebrate progress, and to recognize the beauty of the everyday moments that life offered. And as she held her grandson, feeling his tiny heartbeat against hers, Amanda understood that her journey was more than her own. It was a testament to resilience, to courage, and to the quiet power of claiming your life. She had endured storms, overcome doubt, and emerged stronger than ever. She had transformed inside and out. She had finally become herself. And that, in every sense of the word, was extraordinary. The leaves had begun to turn in Kentucky, casting the neighborhood in shades of amber and gold, and Amanda Halterman paused on her porch, watching the quiet rhythm of life unfold. The house, once a stage for drama and tension, now hummed with calm. The laughter of her grandson echoing softly, the smell of fresh coffee drifting from the kitchen, the gentle rustle of wind through the trees. She reflected on the journey that had brought her here. Years of struggle, years of self-doubt, years of living under the gaze of cameras and public opinion. She thought about the countless small choices she had made, the walks taken when it would have been easier to sit, the meals prepared when it would have been easier to indulge, the boundaries enforced when it would have been easier to give in. Each choice, quiet but deliberate, had become a thread weaving the fabric of her new life. Amanda's followers had celebrated her transformation, but she understood now that the true change was unseen. It was the strength she carried when no one was watching. It was the serenity in her interactions with family. It was the pride in her own reflection, not for validation, but for the woman she had fought to become. She held her grandson a little tighter, feeling his heartbeat align with hers, and a sense of profound peace washed over her. The road hadn't been easy. There had been setbacks, tears, and moments of doubt. But she had learned that resilience isn't born from comfort, it's forged in struggle. Amanda Halterman's story was no longer just about reality TV or public scrutiny. It was a testament to endurance, self-love, and the quiet power of reclaiming your life. And as she watched the golden light of autumn stretch across her Kentucky home, she knew that the best chapters were yet to come, chapters written by her, for her, and for the legacy she would leave in the lives she touched. As the year waned and Kentucky's skies shifted from gold to gray, Amanda Halterman stood at a quiet crossroads. She had walked through storms that could have broken her, yet here she was, stronger, calmer, and more self-aware than ever before. The journey that had once felt endless, a series of small battles with self-doubt, family pressure, and public scrutiny, had brought her to a point of clarity. Amanda knew that life would always bring new challenges. There would be moments of uncertainty, days when the weight of expectation crept back in. But now, she had learned the secret that so many of her fans admired. Resilience isn't the absence of struggle. It's the choice to continue, to rise, and to embrace your own story on your own terms. Her followers, inspired by her transformation, saw more than just a slimmer figure or a radiant smile. They saw a woman redefining what it means to fight quietly, to prioritize self-love, and to claim joy without apology. They saw someone who had turned personal growth into a living example, proof that even in the shadows of chaos, strength can bloom. Amanda looked out at her Kentucky home, the trees swaying gently in the breeze, the laughter of her grandson echoing through the yard. She felt a profound sense of purpose. Her story wasn't just for television, and it wasn't just for social media validation. It was for every person struggling to find themselves, for every person learning to stand tall when life feels heavy. And as she breathed in the cool air of a new season, she understood. The best chapters were still unwritten. Every sunrise would bring choices, challenges, and opportunities to grow. But for Amanda Halterman, one truth remained unshakable. She had discovered her own power, her own worth, and her own joy, and nothing could take that away. Her journey was no longer defined by the past, the cameras, or the chaos. It was defined by her, a continuing story of strength, self-discovery, and the quiet, unstoppable force of a woman fully claiming her life. The sun was beginning its slow descent over the Kentucky horizon, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink. Amanda Halterman stood on her porch, the air filled with the quiet sounds of a home at peace, the distant laughter of her grandson, the gentle rustle of leaves, the calm hum of a life reclaimed. Her journey had been anything but simple. Years of scrutiny, family tension, personal struggle, and public exposure had shaped her story. Yet through it all, Amanda had emerged not only transformed in body, but fortified in spirit. She had discovered a truth that was often lost in the chaos of reality television, that transformation begins within, and self-love is the most revolutionary act of all. Fans had followed her story, inspired not just by the physical changes, but by the courage and resilience behind them. Comments and messages poured in, some from people who had been fighting their own battles for years, others from young viewers learning the value of patience and self-respect. Each message was a reminder that her journey had become more than a personal triumph. It was a beacon of hope. Amanda reflected on her own family, on the bonds strengthened, the tensions eased, and the understanding fostered through her newfound balance. She realized that her story could ripple outward, influencing not just those who watched her on TV, but everyone who witnessed the quiet power of perseverance, authenticity, and self-care. The golden light of evening settled on her face, and for a moment, Amanda felt the full weight of her accomplishment. She had survived the storms of public scrutiny, the pressures of family, and the personal battles that once threatened to define her. She had learned to set boundaries, embrace growth, and step fully into her own life. And in that stillness, she understood something profound. Her story wasn't just about what she had lost or gained in pounds, attention, or fame. It was about what she had claimed, her confidence, her joy, her power, and her voice. Amanda Halterman had become a living testament to resilience, showing that even amid life's chaos, it is possible to rise, to heal, and to shine. Her legacy, she realized, wasn't just on a screen or in a photograph. It was in the hearts of those she inspired. It was in the strength she carried forward. And it would continue, quietly, powerfully, as a reminder that true transformation is measured not by external approval, but by the courage to claim your life and live it fully, authentically, and unapologetically. Amanda Halterman had written her story, and it was far from over. Autumn was giving way to winter in Kentucky, and Amanda Halterman found herself reflecting once again on how far she had come. The changes were no longer just physical. They were woven into the way she moved through her world, the confidence in her voice, the ease with which she navigated challenges, and the joy she allowed herself to embrace. Life, she realized, was not a destination but a journey. And while the cameras of 1,000-Pound Sisters had captured fragments of her story, they had never captured its full depth. The quiet mornings on the porch, the small victories, the moments of self-discovery that happened when no one was watching. Amanda looked ahead with intention. There were more personal milestones to reach, more habits to strengthen, more opportunities to define herself on her own terms. She imagined expanding her influence, helping others navigate their own journeys with honesty and courage, sharing insights not just through social media, but perhaps through community outreach, mentorship, or projects that celebrated resilience and self-love. Fans had become part of this journey in subtle but profound ways. Messages of gratitude, stories of inspiration, and shared experiences reminded Amanda that her life's work extended far beyond personal achievement. Her transformation had become a beacon, proof that growth, healing, and self-respect were possible even in the face of long-standing challenges. Even within her family, dynamics continued to evolve. Amanda's newfound confidence created space for healthier communication, mutual respect, and understanding. While challenges remained, the foundation she had built, grounded in self-awareness and resilience, allowed her to navigate them with a clarity she had never possessed before. And as she watched the first snowfall dust the Kentucky landscape in pristine white, Amanda felt a quiet thrill at the possibilities ahead. Her story was far from finished. Each day offered the chance to write new chapters, chapters defined not by past struggles or public perception, but by the choices she made, the love she cultivated, and the life she was determined to live fully. Amanda Halterman's journey was ongoing, vibrant, and alive, a testament to the enduring power of perseverance, self-love, and the courage to claim one's life. And as the cold air brushed her cheeks and the winter sun glinted off the snow, she knew one thing with certainty: the best chapters were still ahead. Winter had settled fully across Kentucky, blanketing the world in quiet white, and Amanda Halterman stood on her porch, taking in the stillness. The air was crisp, carrying the subtle scent of wood smoke and frost, and the world seemed to pause around her. For years, Amanda's life had been anything but still. Drama, chaos, cameras, scrutiny, they had defined her story. But now, she stood grounded, her presence a calm center in a world that had often demanded she bend, shrink, or react. She thought back to the early days of her journey, the struggles with self-confidence, the weight she carried not just on her body but in her heart, the constant pressure to manage family conflict while navigating her own growth. Every tear shed, every choice made to persevere, every quiet victory, it had all led her here. Amanda had transformed, but not just physically. She had cultivated resilience, self-respect, and an unshakable sense of identity. She had learned to accept herself fully, to embrace joy even amidst challenge, and to walk her path with intention. The glow her fans admired wasn't just in her appearance, it was in her spirit, in the way she moved through the world with clarity, compassion, and quiet power. Her journey had inspired countless others. Messages poured in from viewers who saw themselves in her struggle, who found hope in her growth, who learned that self-love and perseverance could create lasting change. Amanda understood that her story extended far beyond her own life. It was a beacon for anyone seeking courage, strength, or the belief that transformation is possible at any stage. As she held her grandson close, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat, Amanda realized the truth she had fought to uncover. The life she had rebuilt was hers entirely, not dictated by drama, public opinion, or past mistakes. She had reclaimed her narrative, her health, her happiness, and her voice. And in that reclamation, she discovered something enduring: peace. A peace born not from the absence of struggle, but from the mastery of self, the embrace of resilience, and the unwavering commitment to living authentically. Amanda Halterman's journey was more than a story of weight loss. It was a story of survival, growth, and empowerment. It was proof that even in the most challenging circumstances, one could rise, thrive, and inspire. It was proof that transformation is not just possible, it is enduring. And as the winter sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose, Amanda smiled softly. She was ready for whatever came next, fully grounded in herself, fully present in her life, and fully aware of the power she now carried. Her journey would continue, but for this moment, she was complete. Amanda Halterman had become the author of her own life, and that story, more than anything, was extraordinary.